Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. Today I have my friend, amazing Janina Neumann, who I'm going to interview for this podcast. Janina is specialized in design, and she's a bilingual design company. And she helps the public sector, charities, social entrepreneurs, and she implements design for social change. Woohoo! And yeah, she's amazing. And the bilingual focus ensures clients can communicate their message equally effectively across different languages and cultures. So, welcome, Janina.
Thank you so much for having me on, Janine. It's so lovely to be here.
I'm so honored to have you on board. I can't remember if I said your company name, Janina Neumann Design. If I didn't, that's a company. Anyway, so I have two questions for you. As you are German and you live in the UK, you started this business called Bicultural. Can you tell me why and when it started?
Yes, so I've been running my business since 2016, and really the bicultural and the bilingual element really came about as I developed as a business owner. Because as you develop as a business owner, you do a lot of self-development, and you just find your authentic self, so to speak. And it really came about because I was invited by a client to attend their trade show, which is called Medica in Germany. And I really understood that there's a real need to help clients communicate across cultures. So bicultural means that you have two cultures that you regard as your own. So cultures can be like people, countries, or the way people behave. The bilingual part is that I speak German and English fluently. I am actually a so-called coordinate bilingual, so I have both language. I learnt both languages in different contexts, so I associate different words according to the language. So it's also guided by experience.
Oh, like an example?
There was a really interesting study which I think best describes how I might feel. And it was a study where they asked Mandarin and English speaking individuals. So they're both, the individuals were all bilingual. And they were asked, could you name a statue with a raised arm? And when asked in English, they were more likely to say Statue of Liberty. And when asked in Mandarin, they'd be more likely to say Statue of Mao.
Oh, that's fascinating. I
Yes.
never heard about that. So what's this thing called again? Coordinate.
Coordinate bilingual, yes. There are
Oh,
different types of bilingualism. So you have a different kind, which when you're very young, you basically learn these two languages, but you have one way of thinking. Whilst if you're coordinate bilingual, which is the step up from that because you're a bit older, you have two ways of thinking. So I actually can switch perspective according to who I designed for. And then you have another level is how people learn different languages when they're adults. So they actually translate through the other language.
oh, that's super fascinating. So if you learn a foreign language as an adult, you first think in your own language and then they translate it.
Yes, typically, yes.
Oh, wow. Yes, that makes sense because languages I've learned as an adult, I need to, how will you say this? And I try to remember my textbook as well. How did I say this phrase when I go to the bar and I need to ask for a, for a special dish? That's super interesting. I didn't know they differentiate the categories. Wow, fascinating. What advantages has biculturalism given you?
So the main advantage, I think, is to understand different people and why they might do things differently, and to having more of an acceptance towards that. I also think that I'm more willing to put myself in situations where I don't really know the outcome. for example, when I started my business, I was in my early 20s, and I just turn up at these quite random networking events where I knew no one, and I had the confidence because I knew how it sometimes feels to be different. And obviously in that scenario, I was only different because people didn't know me. But being bicultural, you just sometimes don't fit in, even though you have both values and you can integrate quite well. There's certain things that set you apart.
I totally agree. And this is what I feel as we spoke in your podcast, where I will share the link in the description if you want to hear she interview me. But I will just shortly tell you something. I'm Italian/Finnish, but I also lived many years in the UK. I've gone for long holidays in the US because my mother lives there. And I lived a bit in Africa and a bit in France. And wherever I am in these countries, I always feel home. But I always am somewhere else. So when I'm in Italy, compared to my friends, the Italian ones, I always have a lot of foreigner inside me. When I'm here, I am English, I'm Italian/Finnish. When I'm in Finland, I'm Italian. And it's like, that's something I feel, that you're always like a bit of out of place. But it's actually something, if you make peace with it, you feel good then. It's like you can fit everywhere. On the downside, is like you have many homes, no?
Yeah, certainly. But also, I feel that really the people that you surround yourself with make you feel at home. I have family and friends who are from different cultures, and sometimes it's such a mix. And actually, because of their personalities and their way of doing things, I feel at home. So that's a really good thing. I can imagine, because you're never really out of place as long as you're with the right people.
Yes, absolutely. I heard some time ago somebody saying that if you're with the right people, it doesn't matter what you're doing. And that's true. When you're with the right people, it doesn't matter if you're like playing a board game or just chatting or watching television. If you're with the right people, it's a great night.
Certainly, exactly. And you can just bond over their personalities, because I think sometimes people misunderstand, culture for actually individual traits. It's a good guidance on how to form friendships, but it's not the beginning and end all, because personality is so important as well.
Absolutely. Do you think that your biculturalism has helped you to be more empathetic and be more switch on with your intuition about people?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's because you notice like body language a bit more, because sometimes you don't know how the other person feels, or whether they they might have like a stern demeanor, and you might think, do they not like me? But actually they're probably just thinking. And I have family who are like that, so I can relate to that some people actually just have a stare into space when they think. So actually just being more aware that people are brought up differently, so that's going to affect how they communicate, and it depends of whether they've switched their communication style or not. So yeah, it definitely makes you more empathetic. It also makes you more empathetic when someone doesn't fit in, because you can relate to that they might miss parts of the other culture, or they've left family behind, so that's why they might be a bit shy.
Yes. And as you, I started to go to network events, and I will immediately see somebody who felt out of place, and I will go and chat with them, because sometimes it's just a question to warm up to the room or even to a party. I'm always the person that is, if I see somebody out of place, I try to talk to them. Sometimes they're just having a bad day, or maybe they're just grumpy people, but oftentimes it happens very rarely that they don't want to speak with you. Oftentimes they're like so relieved that somebody's talking to them.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And also, I'm always thankful when someone comes up to me and I feel out of place.
Yes, exactly. Do to others what you wish do to yourself, the golden rule. It's very interesting that so who do you help the most? It's like German people who speak fluently English, or English speaking people that want to do business with German speaking countries. How does it work?
So at the moment, I do a lot in the UK community work, and I have the occasional client abroad who wants to um, export to the UK, and they're based in Germany, or they might have a multilingual team. So part of their team was based in Austria, and I communicated with them for a project here in the UK. But also the bilingual and the bicultural aspect actually gives me some insights to help like local communities, because the UK is very much bicultural, and I'm very much interested to work also with minority groups and making them feel like they can build their home here.
Awesome, awesome. Because yes, of course, you also have help British businesses that just want to have a more wide range of people they can appeal to. Right?
Definitely.
Cool, cool. Have you found any cultural barriers, or are there
Um,
any that you're still seeing nowadays?
so for me, just a personal story. A year or so ago, I was having a conversation with someone, and I felt like I was holding. I told him this story, and then I said, "Look, I feel like I'm holding back towards this client because I just want to tell him how I feel and give him some feedback." And he said, "Oh, this person I was talking to said, oh, how come?" And said, "Well, I'm trying to rein in the German direct feedback." And he said, "Actually, that's what I appreciate most about you, that you tell me in a direct way." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's a good thing." So actually, sometimes we see things as barriers, and we're trying to adapt things that are actually part of our personality. Because I would say that although I'm direct with people that I'm close to, I'm not as direct with people that I'm not close to. So it actually depends on how close you are in a business relationship. So that's definitely made me think about how I adapt, because I've also realized that I am bicultural, so I'm a good mix of both. So I can fit in both cultures, but I definitely would say that what I see with my British clients who want to export to Germany is that sometimes they might get a bit confused about why the German audience might ask so many questions, and also they're very much led by theory rather than by application. So they actually want to understand first how you've constructed your argument, whilst here it's a bit more like you show your case study and what you've achieved. So that I think that's quite an important point.
That's interesting. Okay. So Germans are much more, they need to understand how and why you arrive to a result. So they're
Yeah.
interested in different aspects, right? They need to trust you basically in knowing what brought you to that project or to that, I don't know, idea. Instead, British people wants to trust you on a level of, do I like this person kind of thing, right?
Yes, and also the German speaking audience kind of wants to understand whether they agree with your thinking before you come to that conclusion, because if they feel like they don't understand your thinking, that already puts up a barrier,
Oh,
because
okay.
because they're putting their trust in you to deliver or think through a problem. So if they don't understand how you thought it through, they don't really understand how you've come to the conclusion and whether that has any value.
Wow. Wow, that's super fascinating. And have you worked with other cultures that you have noticed some characteristic like the difference between German and British?